You're watching Open Agenda. Here's our host, Joe White.
Welcome to this episode of Open Agenda. I'm your host, Joe White. In the studio with me today is Dr. Joe Venosa from Salisbury. Thank you for coming out. Thank you. Mr. Michael Langford from Salisbury. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So on this episode, we're going to actually have Councilwoman April Jackson on the show. She's a representative of District 1 in Salisbury. She's been on the council the longest. She's not president or vice president, but I will say most of the time she's probably the most outspoken.
Yeah, I agree.
I want to ask her specifically about a couple topics that we've covered on the show recently. The annexation, they tabled the annexation of some land in Wicomico County that the city is looking to annex for development, but also really trying to get across this Rubicon of what is affordable housing and are we ever going to address it? And then finally, I want to bring up something that both of you spoke about at the last city council meeting. It's about the closed sessions. Their efficacy, they're adding to the lack of transparency to the folks, and see what she has to say. So Joe, would you stick around? We're going to bring her out.
Absolutely.
All right, Michael, we'll be right back with her. Okay.
Great.
So stay with us. When we come back, we're going to bring in Councilwoman April Jackson from District 1 in Salisbury. So stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Open Agenda. In the studio with us now is Councilwoman April Jackson from the 1st District in Salisbury. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Michael Langford, thanks for sticking around. Appreciate still having you here.
Thank you for having me.
So we want to talk about affordable housing and the transparency of the city council business. But let's jump into affordable housing, and specifically, we saw a couple annexation resolutions get tabled at the last city council meeting. And actually, you had a large part to play in that, didn't you?
Yes, I did. Well, we tabled it simply because I asked for it to be tabled anyway. Because when developers are coming in our city and want to be annexed from the county into the city, I think the city should actually know what the developer is offering. If, we're giving you something, then I think that we should be giving something just as well. And I think that we should know the process of how things are going, and not be the last minute you're coming to us with annexations, and then we don't know actually what this developer is going to build in this annexation. I think we have the right to know. People ask us about annexations and things of that sort. We have not a clue that these things are happening until they're brought to the table. And I think that we should know because we're the ones that have to vote on them. So I think we have the right to know beforehand how these things are being done and how the developer, what part we play and what part the developer plays in this.
We had talked about creating guidelines for tiering requirements for developers to include affordable housing in their developments. That has not come to the surface yet. Mm-hmm. I think before we talk about any annexing, that we need to clarify what we're expecting from the developers.
And the conversation for later would be what the project would look like. And with regard to the affordable housing piece, I do want to make sure that the council is aware that the mayor has scheduled a meeting with the county to talk about affordable housing options. And then from there, we would set up a task force work group, what have you, to incorporate some of these affordable housing requests that the council has put forward. So we don't have a model yet, but we are meeting and working on it.
Yes, that's why I want to make sure we stick on the one, because again, once we start expanding, we'll get away from the initial, the ask, which is the zoning district.
How soon do we need to make this decision?
I don't think we need to make it right away.
Okay, and I don't think we do either.
Yeah.
I think it should be tabled, and I think it should be going to another work session with more clarification. I am tired of developers coming in here and doing what they want to do in our city and in our county. They come in here and they do what they want. They leave, go back to the states that they come from. They don't care about how we live or how our people in the city of Salisbury live. And I think that we should hold their feet to the fire. I'm just, no, we need, and actually, why can't we have a conversation with the developers?
When you say that the city's given something, you're talking about giving access to the infrastructure that's already been paid for by the other citizens before, like water, sewer, that sort of thing?
Yes. I mean, it's important. The reason they want to be annexed in is because they want our resources. They want something from us. So then we should want something back from them. I mean, even if they're building something, okay, yeah, maybe we do need a cluster of houses or townhomes, but we also need more than that.
Well, Michael, you spoke on our last show about this, specifically about the art designations and how this would change if it's Timbercrest SBY LLC that's asking for the annexation on North Shoemaker. Can you explain again just how does it change if they are successfully annexed into the city for their density?
So for the Timbercrest thing, it's on the Shoemaker Landing annexation that they're planning off of Beagland Park. And so it would increase the density to 20, whereas I think the current zoning would allow for 12.
Okay.
So it's quite an increase, and I agree with Councilwoman Jackson that if we're going to do that, I'm like, I understand the developer wanting to utilize this water sewer system, especially for like new commercial construction in order to be compliant with like state fire codes. You need to have like a commercial sprinkler system, and in order to have that kind of pressure, a lot of times it's more expensive and more difficult, or not even possible, to do that on the county. I don't think anyone's in the abstract against them building housing here. We certainly need the housing stock, but we also need to, again, I agree with Councilwoman Jackson that we need to be doing it smart so that the city benefits, so the people that have been paying taxes for decades are not now getting a worse outcome for themselves.
Okay. So, and you circled this back with affordable housing, as you have many times over the last 10 years since you've been on the city council. What is your definition of affordable housing, or at least how do you want to see that defined in the future?
Well, I want it to be based off, because right now what I'm seeing is most of the affordable housing has become tax credit housing.
Okay.
So it's based on a percentage of your income, but then it's hard for some to get in because either they don't make enough or they make too much. So we're still in a dilemma here because people are still being without housing. So I think that when we come to the point where we can't determine whether you're in there or you're out of there, we need to make some kind of changes with the demographics and how we do things. And I think the smart way to do this is, and then we would have to go to the state, because a lot of this is actually state implemented, because we're getting funding from the state and federal government.
Well, Councilwoman Sharon DeShield, she did a presentation back in the summer.
Wonderful one.
It was not the most exciting topic, but it was very thorough, and it wasn't long.
No.
But she brought up several key indicators that should be addressed. And to your knowledge, in the last 2 or 3 months, has the council or the council president taken up any of those suggestions to start diving in deeper to warrant that merit?
No. And this is not the first time that it's happened. It happened prior to, because I've been, like you said, I've been fighting for 10 years to get this topic. I think sometimes things are being done just to smooth things over. This is being done. Mm-hmm. So we have talked about it. No, talking about it and discussing it is two different things. We need to get into a deep dive discussion about how this is going to be implemented, how we're going to do it. Just like I said, if we have to get together and go to Annapolis to get things set in stone, to make changes in our legislation or whatever, this is what we have to do. And I'm ready to do it because it's a need. I mean, I've never seen so many homeless people in my life, with kids, and just the fact, and it's not even about homeless people, it's about people that are getting ready to become homeless, because a lot of these places now where they haven't done the recertifications, they're losing their homes. I've got several calls from people where in Moss Hill, they're losing their housing and they have nowhere to go, and they've given them approximately 90 days. Who finds a house in 90 days? Who finds a place to live in 90 days?
So if we just use this one development as an example, and the city council had at some point defined what affordable housing is, mm-hmm. would that allow you at that point to sit with the developer and their architects and say, listen, what part of this development is going to be set aside for affordable housing? Is that your ultimate goal?
Yes,
okay.
It is. And I'll say it a million times. We have let developers come in our city and build. They could give a hoot what their developments look like. I've called out a couple of them, called their corporate offices, and asked them, when's the last time you did a general inspection of your properties? And they say, oh, well, we're in New Jersey. Okay, so New Jersey is just a 2 to 3 hour drive. So you're not inspecting your properties?
Well, Michael, you've spoken to this at public comments at times, and we've had conversations. What would be a situation as a citizen that would satisfy your desire to see this at least addressed, even if we don't all agree with the solution?
Yeah, I think that what Councilwoman Jackson, I think it has to come from the government, that we impose certain regulations, that there's stipulations around, when we give access to the public has trust, right? In that the government is going to act in their interest and lead to this better result. And I think that it really just comes down to people, whoever is there working together with. You got to be able to work with the powers that be, whoever that is, right? And so it's not always about everyone believing the same thing at the end of the day, but being able to communicate and agree that there's this outcome that we all want to see.
Well, you spoke about at the city council meeting back in September, specifically about the Here's Home credits and the lack of capital funds for infrastructure.
Yeah.
Here we're adding more infrastructure, would not because it's tabled, but how do you see that folding in, especially for maybe the lay taxpayer out there who's not paying attention to daily city business like you are, but then at the same time is seeing their water bill go up by 60% over the course of 2 years?
That's exactly the problem. I mean, that is part of why I go to the city council meetings to speak on that. It is funny being with Ms. Jackson, because she's heard me speak about that exact thing that you're talking about, is that we just need to, up front in the process, make it clear that there is a standard process, and there was for, like, these are the connect fees. And I think the thing is that they were presented at the time to lay people as like administrative or just like a red tape thing, like, not really necessary. But when you really look at them, it's like, $4,500 is not nothing. And then when you do that hundreds of times, it's like, it's millions, we talked about that. So I think that we just, I guess, part of, the government thing is it's not so much about believing in a specific, it's not so much about being right, but trusting the process, right? We're doing due process, and we want to be able to ensure like a certain quality control through that process, rather than always, public officials aren't psychics. They can't read the minds. And it's really just that there's somebody there that's going to hold people accountable at the end of the day that we need.
So, Councilwoman Jackson, you and Councilwoman DeShiel have spoken several times and made presentations about affordable housing. Do you feel the same sense of urgency amongst your other colleagues on the city council?
Well, I don't feel the urgency, but I do know that they are interested at some point. It is, but sometimes it seems like it's not their plight. It's not their fight. Their fight and their plight is something else. When my fight is, what I see in my district. See, what I see in my district, they may not see in their district. But I see it in my district, and there are other areas of the city that I see this in, and it's an urgency that we take care of this, because, I hate to say what I'm getting ready to say, but it's terrible. It's horrible to see so many people without. Now, I can grant you, some people do not want a place to stay. Some people are satisfied with being just where they are. But then there are others that are actually struggling and want a place. I get so many phone calls from people, young ladies with families that are like, I need somewhere to stay. Miss April, can you help me? I got kids and I don't have a place to stay. I'm getting ready to get put out because of recertifications and things of that sort, because then now they're saying they've made too much money. So they opted out of the subsidy. And I just think that if we've got people in there, then whatever, okay, I know the federal government helps them, but okay, if that person is making enough to pay $1,500 a month, if their income is that high and qualified, let them stay there. Then the government doesn't have to pay that money. Make them pay their own rent. Yeah. You don't have to pay that money. But to put somebody out because, okay, subsidy says that they've outgrown their benefits. No, I think they should be allowed to stay, but just pay their own. Now, if they don't pay their rent, then that's another horse for another color, because that's something I don't have control over. But when we're in these programs, it shouldn't be an opt-out. It should be, okay, now you know you're at full rent now. You have to pay that base rent yourself, okay? Now, we're not going to put you out. This is your base rent.
What would you say? I've done some research into the Easton Housing, Affordable Housing Board. They have actually taken some time to qualify what is affordable housing. And their terminology is 80% to 110% of the median income in and around the town of Easton, which is, that's a kind of a wide range, but at least gives you a jumping off point. Are you in favor of having these work sessions, however long they need to be, so you can hammer that out, or to start a affordable housing board like Easton has?
Yeah, we were supposed to have, but we had started one and then it just fell apart. But what I need people to understand is we're not going to always agree, and we'll agree to disagree. And because somebody doesn't agree with what you said doesn't make it wrong. It's just how they feel. But we need to all get together and fight for the citizens of our city.
Well, speaking of fighting for certain agendas, and then also how that bleeds into transparency, I mean, we did see a few folks get up and speak about the closed sessions. And I know you can't speak to the lawsuits, but there is a lot of frustration amongst the sale of lots 11 and 10. And a lot of those now are embroiled in lawsuits. And yet the city council is still holding a lot of closed sessions for public information. Are you comfortable with that? Okay.
No. And I said, look, the last work session, and they said, we're going into another. I said, another one? I'm tired of them. I mean, I think that's where we get all misconstrued. I think the public should know. I think the public should know we're dealing with the citizens' finances, their money, so why shouldn't they know what we're doing? It shouldn't be a closed door. It should be an open door. I just don't believe in all these closed sessions. I do realize that some things have to be behind the wall, but not everything. And I've had enough of closed sessions. And Councilwoman Sharon DeShields will tell you, I don't care for closed sessions.
Do you think it's done to protect the interests of the developers? Because you're not talking about one developer. You're talking about a group, but it's it's the same group over and over that's coming up in these lawsuits and some of these surplus deals.
I just think it's to protect the best interests of the city, but it's not playing out like that. And,
okay.
I understand that the citizens want to know what is being said, and they have the right to know what's being said. We're talking about things that are coming to their city, things that are involved in their city and involve their tax-paying dollars. They have the right to know. I just feel that way.
Do you feel like there's a possibility that you'll release the minutes from the closed sessions? Is that because it is a maneuver you could do from a closed session?
Well, I thought the first time we had a closed session, and I think that's why everybody kind of got upset with me, because they were like, it didn't matter to me because I didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah. So, Michael, I mean, you've brought up several times at city council meetings and publicly, even at the county council meetings, that the developers, whether we're talking about Horizon tax credit, density changes, annexation deals, that there's just not enough public scrutiny on these deals. When you hear things like 2 closed sessions in one day. Does that give you a good sense, a bad sense?
Yeah, I think one of the issues, right, is like the subrecipient agreement for Lot 10. It really concerns me that that's not, I think that increasing the transparency and allowing people to go over that, because then it's not even about, I think people are worried about losing control of the narrative, right? Losing control of the messaging about the thing, because maybe they are trying to do the right thing, right? And so they want that message, they entrust that message to get out a certain way. And at the same time, though, in order for, like how Ms. Jackson was saying earlier, that that a lot of times they're just finding out and this stuff's already done, right? I feel that on the public side, that a lot of times by the time something is being voted on, I'm like, but what are we specifically in this maintenance code voting for? What is the specific language that we're adding? I'm like, I'm not necessarily against it. At this point, I don't have enough information to form a full opinion. So I'm skeptical and I want more information. I'll say that because that is, again, that process.
That's the best you can do at that
That's
point.
the best you can do.
Now, Lot 10 is the lot downtown where the farmer's market used to be. And
Yeah.
Mentis Capital is supposed to build a hotel there. And the mayor, Randy Taylor, is holding up about $4 million of state grants that are supposed to be used for infrastructure, and then they have to figure that out. I'm a county resident. And part of the lack of transparency with that whole deal is we found out later that our county executive has signed a parking arrangement with Mentis Capital so the county employees can still park there from district court. It may be all legitimate.
Right.
When you have
Right.
closed session on top of backroom deals, on top of, we'll tell you after it's done, it starts to snowball where you really lose complete confidence in the government.
Transparency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No transparency, and I've been fighting for that for quite some time. Be real, so people will believe you. Be honest. That's all I ask. Be honest with the people. It shouldn't be no back door passes or any closed sessions. Be real. Be real. I mean, be real. Let the people know what's going on, because that's when people doubt us and they.
There's one other maneuver, speaking about opening up the minutes to closed sessions, but let's just say that the sessions were kept open. And I did a little research this morning on this, and you got to a point that you did have to discuss something with your legal team. It is a maneuver that the city council could take to then close the session, clear the room, and have that one part of the conversation with your legal team that maybe you don't want everyone to know. That maneuver hasn't been done anytime recently. And at the same time, these closed sessions are starting to stack up.
They are.
I appreciate your perspective. And I will say, as someone who doesn't go to a lot of city council meetings but watches them on PAC 14 later to edit the show, I always appreciate your genuine, you are exactly who you are. And I love that about you. So thank you, Michael. Thank you, Councilwoman Jackson.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Open Agenda. Dr. Venosa, thanks for rejoining us.
Absolutely.
Michael Langford, thanks for sticking around.
Thanks for having me.
So Councilwoman Jackson, actually, she was a great interview, and I think she always just tells it like it is, right?
Yep, exactly.
So let's start from what we talked about with her, this idea of affordable housing, and maybe even more importantly, the kicking of the can down the road that either we're going to do it or we're not, or how we're going to do it. But it just seemed like at the last county council or city council meeting, President Sean Dowdy is just like, once again, we should talk about that when we have more time, which will be never, right?
Well, so a couple of years ago, April alluded to this. Deshaun formed the housing task force for the city, and it was an advisory body that was made up of people that are invested in the community, as well as, property managers, various business interests around the city. Mr. Sampson was there, who we've seen lately speak at the council. Definitely tried to have different, Jermichael and Kevin Lindsay, both friends of the show, were a part of this body. And we just, it's the same thing. There's this phrase, continue to have the conversation. Yeah. Every time somebody made a valuable point, there's this verbal acknowledgement and then this pivot. Right. And it just keeps everybody kind of stuck in a place where we never make any progress on this topic.
Is it because it's maybe not politically desirable to ever say anything against a developer in Salisbury, at least right now in the current climate, other than Councilwoman Jackson and Councilwoman DeShield?
I think it depends on what your goals are. Right. Okay. I think this goes back to the politically ambitious versus the service minded amongst us.
Okay.
There's. To run a successful political campaign, it does take money. It's much easier to know a few business people, get them to, prop you up. And then once you're in that position, you can make the,
It sounds like you almost owe him a favor at that point, which is not how it should
and
work.
that's the thing is I don't think that the public's interest is being represented by a former employee of Green Street Housing. That's one of the developers in question that we're talking about that stands to benefit. So I think that, there's a number of things where Deshaun probably should have recused himself.
Yeah.
I think that's well documented by many people and many entities in terms of the ethical lapses that this current city council president has exhibited. But the irony to your point, and as you were saying that there are certain ambitious politicians like Deshaun Dowdy and a few others who, as you said, they're looking maybe to get some campaign help from the developers. But if you look at the campaign finance reports, I'll tell you what, they're getting bought off cheap. I mean, they're not getting that much money. If you think about it, is a $250 campaign contribution really going to make a huge difference in a campaign? My thought is not, but what I would add to your point is I think some of these people are not so much looking, I mean, yes, certainly they want the campaign help for their political campaigns, but I think a lot of them are looking for their next job.
I think you're right. That was exactly
I knew you were going there, but I was already there because we were both going the same place, Annapolis, right? Because that's what a lot of people are looking at, whether it's they want to...
Well, President Dowdy said he was talking to the White House, so he might have...
Again, speaking of releasing the minutes on that one, I would love to sort of get the details of that conversation. But that, I think, they're tied together. It's the political ambition of some, but also the career and the personal ambition, because we talk about the revolving door of politics and money, right? Okay, well, what happens if you don't have maybe a successful career on city council or on county council, or let's say you're a perennial candidate and don't get elected? What would happen if maybe you were to get a job with one of those developers that you've been publicly supportive of?
We've seen former Mayor Jake Day,
Sure,
former delegate Carl Anderton. They've all moved on to jobs
for the state.
For the state.
Yeah. And what's heartbreaking about that is then you see Secretary Day come back and he's literally giving $125,000, $200,000 checks to literally some of his personal friends and campaign contributors when he was in office. And that's money that's not going to our homeless services. It's not going to helping affordable housing.
As an outsider looking in, I get to be a lot more objective because these aren't my tax dollars directly. I mean, from state grants, it is somewhere. But when I hear Michael speak out against the subrecipient issue on Lot 10, and on one hand, you have a developer like Mentis who's already had benefits of the Horizon Fund and built the Ross. We don't have access to Lot 10 because they've taken it away. And then we're also having closed sessions about what is going on. You're talking $4 million that is supposed to go towards infrastructure to put in sewer and road improvements. But Mentis wants this money to be used so they can develop their private enterprise. Am I wrong there?
No, that's accurate. And I would I personally feel that it should be on the business that they're paying those infrastructure costs. Let the public's tax money go to the schools that are underfunded. Let it go to the understaffed police force that you're now adding more warrants, more to their workload. You can call it budget neutral all you want, but it's like if you're adding more work to people who are getting the same pay, it's not budget neutral.
Yeah. I asked her about defining affordable housing, and we're all amongst different political spectrum here. We're all going to have a different view of that. I will say, having the opportunity, as you might say, to watch all the city council meetings, it's frustrating to see that this continues to come up, but doesn't actually get resolved. I would love to just disagree with it more than just continue to kick the can down.
Give me something that I can at least make a judgment on.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big thing too, is that while people are concerned about, it's speaking to something that's affecting people, which is the cost of living. What Councilwoman Jackson was talking about, her constituents coming to her with those concerns. That's what they're speaking to, right, in the messaging, but they're not, as you pointed out, they're kicking the can down, so it never ends up being addressed. And I think that's, I think fundamentally one of the things that's frustrating is the government doesn't have the ability to house everyone. We don't have enough land, as the government possessing it. So I think that one of the things is that I can personally believe that housing is a right that all people are entitled to, but it's not going to change the fact that the government doesn't literally have the land or the property.
See, I wouldn't see it that way.
Right.
But at the same time, like we keep saying, we got to talk about this. but we'd never talk about it.
But I would argue that's the point. They want to kick that can because
Yes.
it's politically expedient in the sense of what their consequences will be one or the other.
Well, thank you both. It was a great interview with her, and I hope to have her back out to maybe see if they ever do actually bring this up and work on it. So,
And in open session.
in an open session, yeah. So thanks for watching this episode of Open Agenda. We'll be back later this week with another new episode.
I know what I'm doing, man.